last month. Last week. This is done.
Ready? Go.
Meeting will come to order, please. The notice requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act for this meeting have been satisfied. Would you please turn off all electronic equipment as we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Attention, salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Johanna, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Becker?
Here.
Commissioner Amadeo?
Here.
Commissioner Blumberg?
I am here.
Item for discussion on D1 of today's agenda. Mr. McLarnon, please.
Yes, sir. The gas company has put in for some permits, and the one street is Baycrest Court, and that's under moratorium, so by ordinance, they need permission from the governing body to open it up. They will be milling and paving the entire street. So with your permission, I'd like to grant the permit.
I have no problem.
No problem, Marty.
How many residences do we know are impacted, or what their plan is? What are they gonna be doing, did they say?
Yes, due to Hurricane Sandy, they have grant money to upgrade their facilities, and they're putting these excess flow valves in areas that are low. So there's 3 openings on this court that they have to open up the street, and there's about 10 behind the curve that doesn't affect the street.
Okay. And do we know how long and when they wanna do it?
They want to do it sooner than later.
Okay. All right, good.
But the whole street gets milled and repaved,
Correct.
curb to curb.
Curb to curb.
Just wanna try and minimize the disruption for the
Sure.
neighborhood. And I know that sometimes they don't.
But depending on the timing, maybe we can just have them patch it, and then after the summer, come back and mill and pave, allow it to settle.
Right?
Work that out.
Okay.
Okay.
While you're up, Roger, can I ask an update on something?
Yes.
What is the latest on the bike rack grant?
I have a crooked smile on my face. There was a bunch of emails going around from the county and from DOT saying that the DOT has received the application. It's under review by the feds. So I asked for a tentative schedule. I think I shared that amongst the commissioners and the administrator. It looks like at the earliest, bike racks would be started in August. Bike racks.
Will they give us the money and let us do it?
We could have them done tomorrow.
We've already done that.
Yes.
All right. Okay, thank you. Any other items, special items for discussion?
Well, Mayor, I think let Roger explain how long this process for the grant has been going on, at least 2 years that I'm aware of.
2 years in my time in Ventnor, they're just as frustrated as people here in Margate are. And we're all in the same boat. We have every location designated. We have the styles picked out. There's still some, it hasn't gone out to bid yet because it's still under review. They still don't even have the RFP out for the construction management portion of it, which shouldn't be any long period of time, as Atlantic County has a pool of engineers that they can solicit bids for, but they don't know what they're bidding on because we don't have the approved plans and specs yet.
Refresh my memory again, the number of bikes total and how many does Margate get?
I don't have the exact numbers, but I think Margate is getting 133 racks, I believe, and Ventnor's getting about 71. It's whatever that cost is. The different style of racks cost different amounts of money. But the DOT was pretty adamant if the bids come in higher that they will have the money to, they will get the money to cover any additional costs. And we also asked for purchasing additional bike racks that we can store in case one gets knocked over, and they said that they couldn't do that.
Okay. At this point, we will go to department head reports. Scott, why don't you start this week?
Okay, let's start with this. T-Mobile, you've probably seen a number of the emails going back and forth. They originally thought that they wanted to, am I all right here? Yeah, they originally thought they wanted to modify their lease to increase the amount of leased area. However, got an email yesterday that after they sent their crew out and looked at it, apparently they've changed their mind. Now they're going to remove some equipment and replace it with some newer equipment, but they need the city's consent to be allowed to change the equipment. They're not going to request the modification of their lease. So what has to happen now is the plans came in yesterday. I told them to send it to Fred, to Roger, to Johanna, to, I believe you too, Ed. I think I had them sent to you. You have to take a look at it. Roger, you're a little bit more technically versed on what it is they're gonna do. They're gonna substitute a,
They're swapping out antennas and they're providing a generator, I believe.
all right. So they would need you to consent to that modification of their equipment. I see no harm with it. It's an upgrade.
Well, actually, it's just the zoning consent because they have a prior
All right.
approved site plan, as long as they don't increase a certain amount of square footage of that.
The lady
It
asked
just-
for consent from the city,
Okay.
so whatever that is, I'd recommend it. If you're good with it, I mean, I mean, if you're good with it, I would assume you would be. Okay? All right, next, we have Mr. Silverstein, who had been negotiating or at least contacting the city. City Administrator Dini had asked me to get involved with it. This is an individual whose family had owned 11 lots out in the area that was currently mapped wetlands that is not being developed. If you recall, he wanted the city to buy the lots. Now he's at the point of, Rich, am I correct on this? He wants to donate the lots to the city. They don't appear to be buildable. I know they're mapped wetlands.
We've discussed it
Yeah.
here at this meeting a couple of times, and the commissioners decided that they didn't want to purchase it, which is
Right.
a good decision. Then he asked us to do appraisals, and we declined to do appraisals, and if he wanted to do appraisals, he could do appraisals. He
Very
has
true.
ultimately apparently done appraisals, and he's down to wanting to donate the land to us. We did commit to him in that first letter that if he wanted to donate the land to us, that we would accept it by deed, and the solicitor's gonna be back in touch with him and prepare the deed, and if he signs it, he signs it, and if not, he won't.
Are we good with that?
Good.
Okay, fine, and I'll help him. I mean, I do a lot of deeds. It's easy for me to do it. And he wants to give it to the city for free. But they're not buildable lots, though.
Well, nothing's for free.
Well,
Is
nothing
there grass
is
to
free.
cut?
Well, there's trees and weeds there, and I guess, but I hope there's a lot of wildlife habitat, I believe. Okay, third, Mr. Bierce was here at our last meeting. He lives on Fremont Avenue. He's requested a license agreement similar to what a number of his neighbors had gotten from the city many, many years ago to be able to fence an area that's immediately contiguous to the back of his yard, but it is on city property. There's a 10-foot wide, I believe it's 10-foot wide strip the city owns, and then there's a paper street. I think Johanna did furnish me copies of what the other neighbors had gotten, when, Johanna, maybe 20 years ago?
They were as recent as 8 years ago.
The most recent was, and again, it's area that's cannot be developed. In consultation with the city administrator, his main point was no permanent structures on there.
Scott,
but-
may I?
What?
Steve?
Please.
These are actually the curb cuts that have never been used that face Station 2.
Okay.
This land that has previously been used and leased to these property owners. That's what we're referring to here.
So there is a map and there's a survey. I told the surveyor what to show us, give us a meets and bounds description. Presumably you'd be in favor of it in as much as all the other neighbors, what, there were about 5 others, 4 others?
I believe at one time or another, they all have
They all
gotten the lease agreement.
it's
or else
non-buildable.
have just used the land without the agreement.
I'll make sure you get copies of the survey and.
I'm good with that.
May I ask a question, Mayor?
You may.
You say curb cuts. I drove by there yesterday. I didn't recognize any curb cuts in the area except one where there was a garage. And the curb cuts are usually on the city's right of way, am I correct?
Right.
So in other words, what I'm thinking is they want to use and put a curb cut in if it doesn't exist?
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Is that what you said that, not me?
No, it's the curbing.
You say curb cut.
I'm sorry, it's the
Curb cut is an
curbing.
apron
Yeah.
Right.
Nah, it's
Creates
not
For
a
a
driveway.
garage. I don't know, there may be a
I know he
a
wants to put a
driveway
fence in.
back there,
That's what he told me.
but he
Now,
wants a fence.
if he uses it to have access to the rear of his property, it's quite possible, maybe he would want to put
Well,
something.
before I support it, I would like to see
I
a
haven't seen it.
blueprint, and I'd like to visit the site and see what he wants to do.
That would be the right thing to do, but I did want to get that survey, give me the precise measurements, show me exactly what it is. But I didn't want him to do all that if you were negative on it. If you're saying, yeah, let's take a look at it, then we'll go forward. Good? All right.
What else, Scott?
Last but not least, we had our prerogative writ action heard on Tuesday in front of Judge Mendez, Two Daughters versus Harbor Bay and our planning board and the city. This has to do with the redevelopment of the what we call the Captain Andy site. I thought it went extremely well. Judge Mendez, as is his habit and custom, he was very thorough. He was well versed. It was obvious he had read all the documentation that had been submitted from all parties. I thought our planning board solicitor, Elias Manis, did a great job on behalf of the planning board. Also, Mr. Zeltner, Ben Zeltner, on behalf of Harbor Bay. And judging by the questions, look, you never know what a court's going to do, but I believe Judge Mendez is very knowledgeable in this area, and he seemed to take a great interest. You'll recall that we asked him in writing about a month ago if there was a way to expedite this, because that area is, now that the new bulkheads have been put in by those private owners, we need to get that street back in use and get these projects moving forward. They've been sitting there with those fences up, but it's because of the litigation. We had, they've got one restaurant appealing the approval of what essentially is a restaurant across the street. But I can tell you that I feel pretty confident. Nothing's 100%. We're on pretty solid ground though on these approvals. Let me dovetail into the Lombardi's. That bulkhead is still moving along. As you know, we're getting another 588 feet of new bulkhead built along Amherst Avenue. This will dovetail into the efforts of you with your drainage plan that comes next. I believe that Commissioner Amadei, you probably know more about this than I do on the demolition, that's coming soon, that building. When they had a little fire there 2 weeks ago, but it was a very small fire. But that building is in poor condition. It's going to be coming down next week. You'll see it. So all the heavy-duty work on Amherst Avenue hopefully will be done, before Memorial Day weekend. It looks that way, which is great. And then we'll have that parking lot opened up. We're going to have to work out the details for the additional 24 public parking spaces that have been created across from Steve and Cookie. So we're moving forward on that one too. Any questions?
Anybody? Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Good job as always. Frank?
This week, we had delivered our brooms for our little track loaders. We're gonna start using on the walkovers on the beach and at the street ends on the beach. They're also good for moving snow too off of sidewalks. Fire hydrant flushing is gonna be the 1st of April to the 5th. I just want to remind everybody. And we had a meeting this week with the schools and half a dozen teachers about a stormwater project. What is that? And the stormwater project is they're going to go around and paint each storm drain north of Jerome Avenue with either a fish or a crab or something like that to make people aware of our stormwater runoff. The meeting went very well. We offered our assistance. They really don't need nothing from the city. They are supplying everything themselves. They coordinated with the police department, so everybody's on board. So we look forward to this project. It's being ran very, very well. That's all I have.
Thank you, Frank. Roger?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to add on to my previous comments, Wawa finally did get a hold of me, and they're going to submit 3 different renderings to address the entrance to their site off of Ventnor Avenue to make it more safe and clearly indicate that there's ingress and egress off of that road. Planning and zoning is going very strong. We have a planning board meeting next Thursday at 6:30 in this room, and that's about it.
Wawa makes city government look fast.
If there's any consolation, she was very apologetic for or delay in getting back.
Nothing to add, but I want the Rocky music played during my report next meeting.
Just shows nobody listens to me. I made the announcement. Mr. Deeney.
The city clerk held an auction for the second time for the ice cream vending. And just as the first time, while there was the single vendor present, he chose not to bid, which the minimum bid was $50,000, if you remember. He's still looking, I think, to be able to be vend. He's seeing if there's any other competition, and he's looking to get it for less than $50,000. So I've discussed this with the clerk and with the purchasing official, Roger, and we are able to negotiate contracts at this time. What I'd like to do, though, is seek out some other potential vendors, one of which has been in the past Jim Callista, who's always bid and yet wasn't successful in the past. So we have a couple of options. We have reached out to CL City. They're in the process of receiving written bids right now. So we're trying to see which vendors have been interested or are continuing to be interested in CL and make contact with them. So once we do, we have two choices. We can then negotiate a contract with one or all of the people above, or we can go out for a written bid. Go one more time out and actually seek a written bid in a somewhat traditional way, although we've not done it that way in the past. We've been very successful in having the oral auction because we've had competition and have received anywhere between $50,000 and $100,000 for ice cream bids. So I wanted to report that to you and to see if you have any further guidance for us, whether you do want to seek written bids for sure, or you want us to negotiate. And if we do negotiate, I would suggest we negotiate if we know that there's more than one vendor to negotiate with, not just one vendor. Question, comment, suggestion?
If we ask for, in this scenario, if we ask for written bids, are we obligated to take the low bidder?
We're not
Or
obligated.
can we
We're not
then
obligated.
negotiate?
Oh, well,
Related to,
if
so
we set a
public
minimum,
bidding law-
minimum bid, then I would think that, Roger, help us, but
They're
I
actually
think we would
seeking a
have.
high bid,
that-
so the money coming back.
That's what I mean. So, but the idea is, if we don't like that, say we do that and we don't like it, do we have to take it, being that we're in this scenario of being allowed to negotiate? Because we've now solicited twice, and now we're gonna solicit the third time. So say we ask for written bids, and we get 3 guys that bid, and one guy cut the highest bid is $25,000, and we say, you know what, are we allowed to reject that?
Similar to an auction, you're gonna have a minimum price. Say you're gonna have a minimum price of $40,000. The bids come in 35, 39, 37. We could reject that because they never met the threshold of what we're
Right.
asking for.
If that, so, in that regard, I don't see where it would hurt to publicly ask for written bids and see what happens. And then so that's my opinion, and then my second question is, what does Ocean City do?
They do sealed bids also.
So Ocean City has a group of vendors that vend on the beach, and is it 1, 2, 10, or how do they write it? It's gotta be, I would imagine it's more
Well,
than
they
one,
have,
because it's so big.
they usually have one vendor, but it's allowed to go onto the beach to get clients, and they also have vendors that can stay on the streets, on specific areas that
Right,
the city
okay.
owns.
Okay.
CL City, I believe, is just one vendor that goes beach to
The
beach.
traditional way would be written bids, it would seem to
Right.
me, although we historically have done it the other way, and we've been very, very successful.
Right.
But right now, we're not, and so I kind of favor going to written bid too, because I think it's a cleaner way and,
A written bid with a $50,000 threshold, right?
yeah, see what
Do
happens.
it.
And you might have a broader reach too, because you can notify certain people.
Right.
What, do you want to lower that threshold from 50?
No, I wouldn't, because we still
You still
then
go
have
back
the
and
avenue to
negotiate.
negotiate.
Yeah, that's the key.
Okay.
I mean, that's what we've traditionally got. I have no reason to think it's not worth that amount of money. I mean, they paid as much as 90 or 100,000. so-
100.
One year.
Okay. So why don't we do that? You okay with that?
I'm fine with that.
Good, good idea. Okay. You have anything else, Rich?
No, I will meet with both of you next week and we'll get this thing moving. I'm good, thank you.
Captain?
Police Department, we're getting ready to get recertified through the accreditation process. The on-site assessors should be there on Thursday. Hopefully it goes smoothly and we receive our 3-year recertification. Other than that, all's good.
Thank you. Joanna?
The clerk's office is preparing for our May 14th election. We're going to update our website to include the applications for mail-in ballots to be able to be downloaded, and the application to register to vote will also be added to the website.
Good, thank you. Fred, you have anything today?
I'm just waiting for the Chief Adams to report. Thank you.
Well, then let's do it.
Oh,
Chief
Mayor?
Adams.
Do you have something else to add?
I do. And tomorrow there will be the drawing for the positions on the ballot held here at 11 o'clock in this building, in this room.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I just want to report on the update of the regional grant with Atlantic City, Ventnor, and Margate for the SCBA. The SCBAs have all been ordered. We were looking at a 60 to 90 day frame, so hopefully within the next 30 to 45 days, we should be receiving the SCBA units, which will be a great upgrade for the fire department. Still working out through Atlantic City the 10% share, but as soon as I get that information finalized, I will get it to Rich and Roger and Lisa so we can figure that part out. But the money is funded and it's available. It's just a matter of waiting on them to provide that documentation to us. So this will be a good thing. It's going to upgrade all of our SCBA units, which are about 5 standards out of the current NFPA standards. So it's going to bring us into the new era, which is very good. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. John?
Mayor, just one thing I want to touch on so that I can bring Commissioner Blumberg and yourself up to date. Our bench program is taking off, as we discussed in our past meetings for the residents here. Residents can purchase benches that will be placed on the top of the dune. The Army Corps allowed for a 10 by 10 area for benches to be placed or strollers to be parked, whatever. We're getting multiple requests on certain street ends, and I think we should have a brief discussion. And I spoke with Frank earlier, and Frank had a good recommendation that we have 34 street ends that are capable of housing benches. We should try to sell those benches out before we revisit and put the second bench in place, which it should fit, east or west, or north and west, or south and west or north, depending on the direction of the crossover. And for the general public to know, it's on a cost basis of what the bench costs, what the plaque costs, and what it costs for the Public Works to install the foundation to bolt the bench down. So there's no profit made on the city side. It's there for the residents that want to memorialize or dedicate a bench to a family member or a loved one, whatever your preference is. So it's a discussion the three of us should have. If we feel we go through the process and we sell the 34 spots, then we can return back. But people can also call in to Public Works, to Anthony Edge, and reserve the spot, so when the time comes, their name's in place. Because right out of the bat, some of the popular beaches, Thurlow, Granville, not Granville, Gladstone, Huntington are all multiple requests. So we would love to satisfy all our residents and neighbors, but we're limited to 34 spots, and probably in the end, it would end up being 68 benches total.
So,
What's your opinion?
so if I might, and I haven't given it a ton of thought, but, do we have a rough idea of what that cost would be per bench location, if you will? When you're talking about the foundations and the installation and the cost of the bunch, $1,000.
Yeah, the bench costs 700, Frank?
About 4.
4?
Yeah.
And it's delivery, it's the bench, delivery, the pad, the installation costs, and then the 10-year agreement.
And the labor.
Okay, and so why, not why, but should we or could we consider that, so for example, when you go up onto the boardwalk, the benches there have multiple plaques on them. So the plaques are like yay big, and you might see one bench with 4 plaques on it. So would an alternative be for the city to purchase and install the benches and then sell the plaques? So you wouldn't have that rush to, I gotta be the first one to get and the only one to have a bench. Maybe you had the bench, and then if you had 4 people interested on Pembroke Avenue, then you would sell those for $250 each to cover your $1,000 cost.
Okay, we had this discussion back in February,
Oh, I might not have been here.
and we went to print. It made the paper.
I might not have been here.
And
But then you have
you're here now.
potentially somebody paying $250 for a plaque. Well, it was 4, and on the next beach, it cost them $1,000.
Because no one else was interested.
Right. I'm not sure that's
Right. Okay.
equitable.
good idea, but we're we've accepted, I think we've sold, how many so far?
I think there's at least 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're all concentrated on the same streets. So we want to try and spread it out. Okay?
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. You done?
Yes.
Okay. Mario, you have anything?
I have one thing, since I do see the captain at the end of the table, I wanted to thank him publicly for the extra effort that he's put forth in updating us on a regular basis related to the project that's ongoing on the beach. It's very helpful that when we get the reports, we can post them, people ask us, and we can tell them. So thank you for that excellent job. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. My list has been taken during the last 2 meetings. You want to, that, now, would you-
Now or wait?
why don't we do that at the workshop, okay? Or you want to do it now?
We're in the workshop.
I'm serious, yeah, but, why don't you make your presentation about the trolley to the microphone?
To the mic,
And then we'll open up for public. We're
mic with.
early yet here.
Okay,
You
I
have
was,
3 minutes.
3 minutes, you
Okay.
got it. I was asked to collect some very preliminary information for Commissioner Blumberg and for the remaining commissioners on possible trolley service to provide some assistance with getting people from the various sections of only Margate. We're not talking about a service that operates outside of Margate, but an inside Margate, I guess, route that would get them Bayside to some major points within Margate, perhaps Lucy, to some handicapped access beach entrances, and a couple of other stops that will be determined by the commissioners at a later date when you've discussed this more thoroughly. So far, we've collected information on the possibility of, there's leasing a trolley, there is purchasing a trolley, there is the rental of a trolley service similar to what Ocean City and Cape May do. All of those issues will be discussed among the commissioners, and no decision, to my knowledge, has been made on selecting any particular service, although we feel like we're leaning towards a trial would be a more intelligent option for us at this point, to see the interest in such a service and to see whether you'll be charging a fare, whether it's a free service, how that affects the price to the city. So like I said, preliminary numbers are coming in now, very preliminary, assuming an 8-hour route in a day. And the current price without any negotiation back and forth, just off the top, is about $500 a day. And that is based on the assumption of a 100-day season with additional opportunities for use of the trolley service for shoulder season events, such as the, your Bayside events and all that are held by the Business Association. And then, of course, there's further discussion to be had on whether that's a cost that the city itself will choose to absorb, whether it's something that you'll be seeking partners for, within your business or anywhere else. So like I said, everything I'm giving you is very preliminary at this point, but that's where we are in our research so far. So all of you will find an email which gave you a basic summary of what took place. Some of you may not even have seen it because I sent it out this afternoon right before the meeting.
Thank you.
How does, can I, okay.
Yeah, go.
How does Ocean City, I guess I have two questions because we have two longtime Ocean City people here. How does Ocean City relate to that service? Do they like it? Does the town like it, and do the visitors like it? So maybe that question is for, I don't know if you've reached out to them, maybe for Roger and Rich. How does Ocean City view the trolley service that they provide?
I would say the 1 year they didn't have it, they wasn't good.
Okay, so it really works for them.
It does, but I want to caution and say it's quite a different community in a lot of ways, in the
Right.
sense that it runs on one, down there, North-South Street.
Right.
And it runs all the time on that one street, and
Right.
essentially takes people from one end of the island to the other end of the island. It does not deal with cross streets, or does not deal specifically with any business.
Right.
But a lot of visitors use it because the other thing that Ocean City, it has a large commercial area with parking, and the parking costs money, a lot of money, $8 or $10 a day for parking lots, so somebody can ride a trolley for $1 or $2.
Right.
And take your family up, and it's worth it for them. So it works, and they like it well, but I'm not sure it's apples and apples.
Right, okay.
And that frankly would have been my answer, because yes, I have spent some
Okay.
time
All right,
doing
good. I'm
some
sorry.
preliminary, no, absolutely. It was a very valid question, and I'm still waiting for some more responses from the trolley company to other issues, such as what happens to your per-day basis when it's bad weather? Is there a cancellation option for certain days? Things like that. But right now, the theory that they're operating on is that there's approximately 10 stops. So that it's right now scheduled to run so that it hits, for instance, both of your business districts. So it hits certain handicapped accessible places. So it hits your community center for seniors. So it hits basically generic meeting places where people tend to congregate, where they want to go for areas to seek out stores, dinners, the beach itself. And that can be discussed and amended by the commissioners at any point. There is no solid route. It was just something to get pricing.
Right, and we could, in that regard, it sounds like they would be flexible enough if we only wanted it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Correct.
That would get them close to their 100 days, I would think. No?
No, I think 100 days is a third of a year, basically.
4 months.
4 months.
Right. So, but it sounds like maybe they're flexible in that regard.
The pricing will just vary on what you've chosen.
Okay.
The 100 days, in fairness, was my number given to them to constitute a full summer
got you.
season.
All right,
Thank-
Mayor, may I, Dawn, what I would suggest is, first off, thanks for doing the legwork, and thank Commissioner Blumberg for bringing the question up because it came from a business owner during our discussions when we had issues with parking. I would like to see you have a conversation with the MBA. And the other thing I thought about is advertisement could be used as a way to possibly offset the cost, because we're looking at $50,000 if we were to get into a rental program for a season. And again, I'd like to see us go in that direction before we have to make a decision and see if that's of interest to the MBA.
And those questions were actually as part of your attachment that, like I said, in fairness, none of you would have seen as of yet because you were already here prepping for the meeting. But I do have questions out to the trolley operator about the availability of use of magnetic signs for sponsors for certain time periods and things of that nature, not knowing whether that's the route you wanted to go or not, but just in
Right.
case so I could answer you completely. And I reached out to Kate May and I reached out to Ocean City just to see. They seem to have had, I'm not sure if you can call it a similar experience, but for them, I guess the description that was provided to me was the trolley perception was a happier experience for their residents as opposed to the use of, say, jitneys or another service thing. Being as historically most of the coastal communities at some point originally had trolleys, Margate included, people saw that as kind of a nostalgic thing. And like I said, just a more fun experience and a happier experience than having the use of some other form. And of course, you're going to pay a premium for that. Can you get some other type of vehicle and probably do it cheaper? It's based on the experience you want your residents to have. So, like I said, just that was available just for beginning research, and I'll get the rest of your questions answered, and then you can have a fair discussion with complete information and let me know what to do.
Just one more thing before I let you go, along the lines of what John just brought up as it relates to cost. And I understand it's an estimate. So we would pay the $50,000, however, so that's the $500 a day. If we were to charge, does that money come back to us to offset the $50,000 cost?
There is a calculation adjustment if there's fares involved, and I am waiting for the response on what each designated fare does to our calculation.
Okay.
Cool.
And in fairness, like I said, the 50,000 is based on the 100 days, basically
Got it.
flat $500 a day, and has not been negotiated in any way. It was a
Perfect.
beginning number.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Public comment. We'll now open for public comment. Rules are, if you have 3 minutes to comment, you may talk at this public comment on any subject that was discussed today at this session. Sir, your name and address.
It's Sewell, 22 West Drive. Mayor, if you want to spend 50 grand of the taxpayers' money and play Santa Claus, you're going to have to change teams along with Moishe Kapoyer. It's ridiculous. It should be self-sustaining. You're already into the property taxpayers for 85 grand to the MBA yearly. I think they should begin to fork up this kind of cash rather than go to the taxpayers, especially the senior citizen, the octogenarians of this fine city. I think they should be given some consideration. And if you recall, I hate to put the mayor on the way back machine, but the jitney folks were in here long and hard trying to sell a self-sustaining program. Hey, why should it be on the taxpayers' back?
No one said it's going to be on the taxpayers.
Well, I heard 50 grand. Where's it coming out of, the sky?
Don't use Mr. Sewell's time.
Yes, precious time, precious time. And this is ridiculous, this proposal, because it's not self-sustaining. It must be self-sustaining. And if it isn't, bring the jitney folks in. I'm sure they're willing to put trolley or tram on the front window if they want that joyful experience, but not at the expense of the property. Mayor, the time's going to fly by.
That clock's hardly moving, Joe.
It's hardly moving. Time will pass, will you? So just sit tight, Mayor. You only have 1 minute and 31 seconds to go. But in the meantime, don't entertain this thing when you had the Jitney folks here willing to do it at their expense, their time, their cost, it's just, it's not prudent. It's not fiscally prudent, Mayor. I realize that notion is so alien to your perception, but I'm telling you straight out, if you really enjoy this job and you really sincerely want to do it in a fiscally responsible manner, because it's not being done this way on this trolley jolly venture on the back of taxpayers. Stop it, Mayor. Stop it now. Do it right. Do it fiscally sustainable. And if it's not, say thanks, but no thanks. Don't be afraid to say no, Mayor. You just can't give in to every avaricious group that comes forward. You can't pander to that group of people.
How much time do you have?
I have 31 seconds. I'll give it back to you, Mayor, in my magnanimous gesture of the day.
You ran out of steam, John, that's a shame.
Mayor, I could stand here for 6 hours if you want to give me the time.
Your time is up, John, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Items that were discussed here today, Mark?
All right, then question before we start all this.
Name, please?
Mark Ulch, 20 South Decatur. As far as the audio version of the meeting last week, it was brought up about Memorial Day. So
At the next meeting, at the beginning, you'll have an opportunity to talk about that.
at the next, I thought it's
5 o'clock meeting. At this meeting, that's why I announced.
5
okay?
o'clock.
This was the workshop.
Which is really, it may not be, it might be a 5 o'clock meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll be back.
Is that a promise or a threat?
Any other public comment?
Steve Warner, 103 North Sumner Avenue. I just have a couple questions about the benches. I don't know, you got lost on something. Now, how much would a bench cost? And you were saying, I'll just throw out the benches and maybe we can get an answer, some different answers. You were saying the benches at the street ends, would that be on the beach or would that be on the street?
It's
No, be on the crossover.
On top of the dunes, but there's not going to be at the street end itself?
No.
No, just at the top of the dune, that's the only, I had heard that before, but I thought you were saying there was possibly another bench, no?
Well, at the popularity of the
Right.
calls that are coming in, there's multiple requests for the same street.
Right,
But there's 34 streets, and the commission wants the 34 to get filled, and then we'll come back with the second round.
Right.
And install a second, so whoever's interested can still reserve the spot. The sooner they reserve it, the better they are. The cost of the bench is $326.95.
right,
They ship 6 at a time, which cost another $316. With tax and shipping for 6 benches, it's $2,437.75. We have to install concrete footing because, again, it's on the beach. It has to be fastened down to a secure foundation with high winds, storms, and things of that nature, which is roughly $525 a bench. So it takes 30 days to get them, order them, and get them. So I think our first order will go in shortly because we have now 7 requests for them.
Yep.
And it's a program that's volunteer. It was a feel-good thing that came from residents asking if they could do something. And we're just doing it on a break-even thing. And the plaques, they go to Shopee and order their plaque, and they can have their engraving done. The specs, the size of the plaque is limited. It's, I think, 4 inches by 4 by 14 inches. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay, so it wouldn't actually be on the street or?
No. So Steve, if
Yes.
you're like me, as you zig and zag your way
I
up and
gotcha.
over that dune, when you get to the top,
There'll
there's
be
a spot right there where you can, an indent, where you'll be able to sit on the bench, rest, and then work your way back down to the beach.
Oh, I got you, I kind of understand. I guess I misunderstood. I thought you were talking about possibly putting a bench at the street end also. No, not at all.
Crossover.
Just at that thing, and that would be approximately $1,000, possibly a little less?
It's 1,000.
1,000, okay. And if there's multiple people that want it, then just one bench and that's it, I mean?
For now.
For now, okay.
Okay.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Is there a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second.
Mayor Becker,
Yes.
Commissioner Amadeo,
Here.
Commissioner Blumberg.
Yes.
Yes.
Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Mayor Becker,
Yes.
Commissioner Amadeo.
Yes.
Commissioner Blumberg.
Yes.